Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Physiology Secrets podcast. Bit of a different setup. This is a bit of an introduction into the actual episode, which we'll get into in a second. Unfortunately, our guest, Brenton Ford from Effortless Swimming, couldn't make it into here at Mulgrave to be able to record with us, and we couldn't get out there in time to be able to get this episode to you. So we did it over a Skype call earlier on today. The audio quality at times, probably from my end, isn't too great, so just bear with that. But all the stuff from Brenton's end, he's got a really good mic, so it all recorded pretty well. And there's some really awesome content around the basics of swim technique, how they go about it at Effortless Swimming. I'll leave all the links that we refer to down below in the description for wherever you're watching, whether that's on Podbean, iTunes podcast, YouTube, or on Facebook, where you can check out all their stuff. You can go and follow what they do and what Brenton does on a daily basis, and which is the analysis and improvement of swimming technique for obviously swimmers, but then triathletes as well. How that can sort of translate. We'll talk a little bit later on about pool versus open water swimming and a bunch of other awesome things that those guys are doing as well. I'll leave all the links to that below. So without any further ado, we'll get into the episode. Hope you enjoy this one, and we'll see you in the next one. What you do, who you are, and what your background is, but then what the goes with Effortless Swimming.
So my background is basically swimming. I started when I was really young, about 4 or 5 years of age. And I was coached by my granddad, and then when he passed away, I was coached by my dad. So a long background in swimming, but I really started coaching at 19, first year of uni actually, and it was 3 years after that I started Effortless Swimming. And Effortless Swimming, it started because I wanted to do a bit of coaching, but just teach people online. This was early days of like YouTube, and I don't even think podcasting was starting to become a thing. But I wanted to be able to sort of teach the stuff that I knew and teach it to a bigger audience than just the swimmers that I could see face to face. And it started off as just a small idea, and over the next sort of, it's been 12 years now, we've coached 3,000-4,000 different people at clinics, and we've had hundreds of different people at camps, and had millions of people watch our videos. So my background has been coaching, swimming, and then coaching. But I love working with people, especially adults who are doing triathlon and open water swimming. That's where I feel I can have the biggest impact and benefit for people, is those guys who may not have grown up swimming, but they love it, and they just don't know what they can do to get faster. So that's really what I've honed in on over the last couple of years.
Yeah, cool. So you're mostly on the online side of things. I know you run a few clinics and that in person. Do you want to just give us a bit of a rundown of that, and sort of, if you want to plug any of those upcoming clinics, go for it now.
Yeah, well, it was all online the first couple of years, but now we've probably shifted more face to face. So we have about 100 to 150 clinics a year all around Australia, and we do a few in New Zealand as well. And then we run some camps overseas in Hawaii and Thailand, and we're going to have one in Noosa next year as well. So yeah, more face to face stuff. And if you're in Australia, which I know most of your listeners are, then we've got clinics in all the capital cities there.
Awesome. So definitely plenty of resources, and from checking out the stuff from mine as well, the stuff's really high quality, which is great. Keeps it simple to understand, which is perfectly aligned with what we try to do here as well. So anyone interested, definitely start checking some of the stuff out. I guess the question that we sort of want to lead into next is starting point of where to look for a technique. Is there a particular process you guys follow when you're analysing someone's technique, or are there any sort of, I guess, guidelines of where to start if someone is trying to improve their technique? Should they be looking at a particular part of the stroke as a major focus first?
Yeah, what we typically follow is the 5 core principles that we've sort of come up with over the last couple of years. So it all starts with breathing deep and relax. So that is really, you want to be able to relax in the water, because if you're panicked and you're afraid of the water, then it doesn't matter how good your catch is, you're not going to get to the other end of the pool. So just relaxing is number one, and just breathing comfortably. So that means using your diaphragm to breathe. And then it kind of leads on to the next thing, which is finding your balance in the water. So we want to be horizontal, and if your legs and your feet are dropping, there's a number of things that can cause it. But I think a big part of that comes down to having good posture to start with, and that just means we like to talk about it as swimming tall and swimming proud. So chest out, lift your sternum, keep the shoulders back and relaxed, and think of it as though someone's pulling you up from above, like lengthening through the spine. If you've got yourself set up in that way, it's going to help a lot with your balance. So we'll look at balance and then make some adjustments if it's not there, and obviously head position and a few other things play a part. Then we look at the rotation. So swimming's not done flat, it's done rocking side to side. So we normally recommend rotating about 45 degrees through the upper body and then sort of 30 to 35 degrees through the hips. We don't want to roll all the way onto the side. I know there's some sort of swimming methodologies that like to teach, get all the way on your side, get as long as you possibly can, but it's just not what the best swimmers in the world do. And while you don't want to sort of copy everything that the elite guys are doing, because they've probably got some, they've got different mobility and strength, so you don't want to copy everything, but there's things there that are worth trying to replicate. So 45 degrees, rock side to side, with the recovery. So when the arm comes over the top of the water, I know when I got taught, it was really keep the hand close to the body, nice high elbow, but we work with a lot of adults and some of them struggle to get their arms above their head. They can't streamline. So, and you've probably seen that too. So I find with the recovery, especially as an adult, go wide, like have an open recovery. So I mean, open is as in get that hand out wide, as opposed to close where the hand is really close to the body. So that's what I like to aim for. And I also like to aim for an assertive entry. So you don't want to be too calculated and controlled with that entry, because it's just, especially if you're going open water, you're going to be a bit of a victim to the chop and to the wave. So get that hand out in front, and it's once it's in the water that it can slow down a bit. And then in terms of the next thing is a line. So you want your arm to be directly in line with the shoulder. You want this long line from your fingers to your toes, because the way to swim faster is, number one, you've got to minimize drag. It doesn't matter how strong or how fit you are. If you're creating a lot of extra drag by not being aligned or having your feet drop down, it is going to be hard work, even if you're Michael Phelps and your legs are sitting down. So we look at that, and then we look at the catch and the pull. And then after that, we sort of look at some of the finer details, some of the nuances with timing of the catch and the kick and what type of kick they're using. So that's kind of the progression that I like to use. And it's called the five core principles of fast freestyle. That's what we phrase it as. And that's on our website for people to look at. But I find that's a really simple way to approach things, no matter what sort of style and technique you got. And I know we're probably going to go into different types of technique, but no matter what style you swim with, I find that's kind of the framework that you can use no matter where you're at.
Yeah, it's an interesting one as well, because I'm sure you get as well. A lot of guys will instantly think, oh, it's something to do with my hand position or my catch entering the water. But as you just described it, there's so much more to it before you even get to the finer details of where that hand is entering the water. And all the little things to do with body position and that alignment first is really critical to getting it right. So yeah, I really like the fact that you got 5 core principles, keeps it simple as a process. And I'll find, if you shoot through the link, I'll chuck it down below at the bottom of the podcast episode so everyone can check it out, because super useful just to follow that step-by-step process to nail everything down and get those key aspects working. As you just sort of alluded to, in terms of differing techniques, this is a question we get asked a lot when it comes to, we'll start with pool swimming first, but when it comes to some of those elite examples where you have that really symmetrical traditional sort of stroke, but then you've got someone like Michael Phelps who's almost that lopsided asymmetrical stroke, seems to hold or pause a bit on one arm and then leans over. What's the go with determining whether someone's going to be a bit more of that straight down the line, even left and right, or maybe the other way and be a bit asymmetrical, and how you then implement that? How do you know when a person needs to have a slightly different stroke to that perfect model?
Yeah. There's a number of factors that we look at. So the first one is, what are they naturally suited to? So what's someone just off the bat, how are they swimming? And it's usually best to work with the style that they're currently swimming with. So that's the first thing. The second thing is what type of swimming are they doing? Are they training for a triathlon? Will they be wearing a wetsuit? Or are they just going to be purely swimming in the pool? So we'll look at that, and that can determine how they should be swimming. And then also the distance of the event. So if they're doing a 50 or 100, often those techniques are quite different than anyone doing sort of 200 meters or more. So they're the things that we look at. And then in terms of, should you have a more even stroke in terms of the rotation, or should it be more asymmetrical? I find that sometimes it can come down to breathing. So if you're better off breathing every 2 strokes to the one side, that can often lean more towards just an asymmetrical stroke. Or if you typically breathe every 3, then it's going to be usually a bit more balanced. So for example, 2 two Australian triathletes. So Annabelle Luxford, she's got a sort of more balanced stroke, and she breathes every 3 more times than not. So she's got that even rotation, same timing on both sides. Whereas someone like Clayton Fattel, who we've done some filming with, he's sort of more that lopsided technique, and there's no right or wrong there, and it's a very individual thing. So I find it's good to work with whatever people feel like they're best doing and what they're probably naturally doing anyway.
Yep. Yeah, cool. So yeah, there's that room for movement. Is there anything, someone coming brand new into swimming, for example, for the first time, that maybe they've gone from a running background and they're coming into triathlon, they haven't done much swimming, is there one or the other you generally lean towards initially and then sort of work it out from there? Is that sort of how you go about for someone who's completely fresh?
Yeah, I haven't sort of thought too much about that, because I normally just like to see how people swim. So, like, for example, when people come to our clinics, we keep them really small, and we'll do filming with everyone, and then we'll look at, all right, how you're currently swimming, and then we'll look at what are the 3 things that are worth focusing on for them. So yeah, it's just an individual thing. But that said, I reckon, someone who's coming into the sport pretty fresh without much experience, I find if they can just, often the focus is too much on the catch in the pool early on. So while it definitely plays a part, you want to get those first 2 things right, which is the breathing and relaxing, and then just getting balanced in the water. And there's some sort of simple things that I like to sort of always come back to, no matter, even if they're high level swimmers or beginners. And it comes down to just, with your body, your posture, you just want to sort of get that right. You want some tautness through your core, tautness through the midsection. So you need your glutes lightly engaged there, and you want that proud posture, because if the main part of your body is like sort of long and taut, and it's efficient in the water, that's going to set you up and then help you carry on to the catch in the pool. So get that right, get your breathing deep and relaxed, and then that will give you the platform to then move on to the other stuff. So that stuff's not as sexy as working on the catch in the pool, and everyone wants a high elbow catch and stuff, but no, it comes back to good fundamentals. If you have good fundamentals, you can then work on the harder things. And when your stroke starts to fall apart, if you've got those good fundamentals, you're still going to be swimming well, even as you get tired. And I know, you guys are all about, fundamentals and getting good at that and coming back to basics, because it's, with all the content that people see, it's, and I'm probably guilty of this too, with doing lots of different YouTube videos and stuff like that. We talk about many different aspects of the stroke, because it's good to teach, but everything comes back to fundamentals. So I think they're the more important things to work on.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you hit the nail on the head. We're exactly the same. Keep it simple. Keep it to the stuff that's going to make up 95, 98% of your performance, and those little 1%ers at the end are just icing on the cake. Absolutely. Yeah. Leading off the back of, I guess, the pool swimming sort of questions, you want to just talk a bit, once we go a large group of triathletes that we work with, but I've worked with some open water swimmers as well. Is there much difference that you see, one, between pure pool swimmers and then open water athletes? But how does the stroke change based on whether you're swimming in a pool and open water? And is there something that, particularly triathletes who are doing a lot of training in a pool, is there something we should be looking for in those sessions to then carry over when we do have to get in the open water for a race?
So with the first thing, how does the stroke change? When I first started, I was a pool swimmer for sort of 15 years basically. Then I started doing some open water swims when I was about 20, 21. And the first 3 years I was good at it, but not great, because I was swimming like a pool swimmer. And whenever there was any chop, I'd fall back a bit. And it's because I was still swimming like a pool swimmer. And that pool swimmer it's a longer stroke. There's a bit more glide, a bit closer recovery to the body, and just not willing to get sort of scrappy with the stroke. So I find when you're going open water, and especially if you've got a wetsuit on and there's any chop, there's nothing wrong with kind of getting a little bit uglier and a little bit scrappier with the stroke. So what does that look like? Well, a higher and wider recovery is often the case there. And most of the time, especially in Melbourne, we're all swimming with a wetsuit. So when it comes to training, there's nothing wrong with using a pool buoy. Pool buoy and paddles work. You want to develop that upper body strength, and you want to replicate what you do when you're racing. And a lot of the times with the wetsuit on, it's very similar to having a pool buoy in. So that can be a good way to sort of get used to it, and it takes the legs out of it a bit. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't focus on your kick at all. I think there's certainly an element to wanting to have an effective kick. You don't need a big propulsive kick or anything, but you want to be effective with it. But it is definitely much more upper body when you've got the wetsuit on. So what I tell my swimmers when they're looking to transfer across to that open water, the stroke rate's probably going to increase 10 to 15%. And that'll sort of naturally happen anyway when you tend to sit a bit higher with the wetsuit on. But the stroke rate will increase a bit. You probably want to recover a little bit faster. So when it comes to increasing your swim speed without sacrificing your sort of distance per stroke, the swim speed equation is your distance per stroke and your stroke rate. So you can increase your stroke rate by recovering over the top of the water faster and pulling through with the same speed underneath there. So that's basically a way to not be spinning the wheels too much. So that's kind of what I like to focus on instead of just trying to pull faster and pull harder. That's a big mistake that people tend to make when they're trying to go faster. If you're trying to really rush through the water, you're losing that contact time with the water and you're just going to be slipping. So try and maximize that contact time with the water. And then, over the top of the water, assertive entry, keep it wider, and you might be looking at maybe a different kick as well. So I've been doing a lot of work with swimmers lately who have either doing like a 2-beat kick, so 1 kick per arm stroke, or they do a 6-beat kick. Well, I've worked with a lot of sort of triathletes, and I'm getting them to use a 4-beat kick now, and the reason for that is the body position often improves quite a bit with it. And it can also help keep the heart rate down a bit, but keep the pace up. And with a 4-beat kick, so the way to think of it is it's 1 kick on one stroke and 3 on the other. So it's the timing of it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and that works really well with that lopsided stroke where they're where you're basically just breathing on the one side, you're kind of gliding, you're spending more time on that one side. That 4-beat kick can be a good way to make the most of that sort of asymmetrical stroke. So that's what I've found to be working pretty well with a lot of guys lately. And there's all these little levers you can pull when it comes to open water swimming and with your technique. And they're some of them that we typically look at.
Cool. Is it a difficult transition to go from a 2-beat or a 6-beat kick down to that 4-beat? Obviously, it's an interesting timing of the kick with that sort of alternating pattern of 1 and then 3 kicks. Is there anything in particular that you use to train that, just while we're on it?
Yeah, it's I mean, for how we teach it, it's part of principle number 5, so it's sort of towards the end there. It's not something you really want to be starting with. So let's say you've been swimming for 6 to 12 months, what you might want to focus on to begin with, no matter what your timing is you want to have your catch happen at the same time as your downwards kick on that side of your body. So your right arm and your right leg should work together, will work at the same time when you do the catch and the kick there. That's sort of number 1 in terms of your timing with that. But then going between the 3 types of kick, it can be good to be able to shift those gears and to be able to train it. So what we'll normally give someone is a number of ways you can do it, but like 1250s, for example. Start with a 2-beat kick, and you might find the first time you do it, you just can't get it happening. But the more you do it, the better you get at it. But you might do 450s of practicing a 2-beat kick, 450s practice trying to get that 4-beat kick as best you can, and then 450s with a 6-beat kick. And then you can sort of progress to doing like a 150 meters where you'll do 1 lap at 2-beat and then a 4-beat for the next 50 and then 6-beat for the next. So just being able to get better at changing gears, and what the best swimmers end up doing is they might have a progressing set where they're going like say 9 200s, building 1 to 3. So 3, 6 and 9 are the fast ones. With the first 200, they might just do a 2-beat kick because that's what they can sustain, going at an easy pace. And then as they start to pick it up, they'll go to the 4-beat kick. And then if they're really working in that last one, they might throw in a 6-beat kick for the last 50. So that's what you eventually want to get to. And but it is one of the later things you typically want to work on.
Yeah, cool. It's just an interesting one that, coming sort of in the middle is you get that nice balance of efficient kicking, so you can keep the heart rate down, you can sort of cruise through your stroke, but you can still keep the pace on, which is I find that a really, really interesting way to look at it, which is really cool. Just the last thing on sort of open water swimming with sighting. Just take me through what what you do to implement that into the stroke and not, I guess, break up the stroke a bit. Because obviously if we're trying to sustain that continuous keeping the pace on by using potentially a 4-beat kick and opening up the stroke a bit, shortening it up, etc., how do we then incorporate looking out for where we have to go? Obviously, you don't have the guiding the line up the middle of the pool, and you don't have the ropes on either side. You're sort of all over the place. How do you go about then timing that, or teaching, or any drills that you use to implement it into the stroke, and how can you practice it, I guess?
Yeah, I think the best way to practice it is definitely in the pool. And I normally find it really doesn't take long it doesn't take long to learn it. It obviously takes a while to master it and to be able to do it if it's really choppy. But what I teach to nearly everyone is the sight and breathe method. So it's basically when one hand's entering, you're going to be looking up, sort of crocodile eyes, eyes just above the surface of the water. And then on the next stroke, you turn the head to breathe. And so it's almost one fluid movement or motion. You can also obviously just sort of sight and go back down, and that's a good way to do it too. But I find the way to best to not break the rhythm of the stroke is sight and then breathe. And your body position's not going to be affected much by that at all, because it's such a quick look forwards there. And and you should be able to sustain all pretty much the same pace when you do that method. And even if you're sighting every 7 to 9 strokes. So when I'm racing, I'll be looking, usually every sort of 7 to 9 strokes, especially if it's if it is choppy, and the speed's not impacted there. You're much better off doing that, even if let's say it slows you down a second, right? If you do that and breathe, and sight every 9 to 10 strokes, do that rather than go off course for 200 meters across your half Ironman distance, because automatically that's going to be possibly 4 minutes slower. So I like to look at the sort of the Strava profiles of people after a race, and if let's say as long as the course is the right distance, if you're swimming 2100, 2200 meters across a 1900 meter swim, you could cut off one of your swim sessions and just swim straight, and you will have saved yourself 6 minutes there. So it's kind of the low-hanging fruit for a lot of people. So it's worth practicing. So I reckon just in a session, practice that sight and breathe method. We've got a video on YouTube. It's from a couple of years ago, but it's just called how to sight in open water, and it basically just covers that with some videos of Clayton Fattel doing that.
Cool. Definitely an interesting one that obviously can save us a bit of time by not going off course, but then also doing it, as you said, as part of the stroke, just sort of lifting the eyes a little bit and then turning into your normal breath. Just a way to then continue that stroke, so we're not losing time by stopping or having to prop ourselves up and obviously lose that touch and lose that position in the water. So that's been really great. Thanks for jumping on and sort of give us a quick rundown about what you do and a few of the sort of key questions we get asked. I'm sure we'll get more flooding in, so if we do get a bunch more questions, we'll have to get you on a second time on the podcast as well. But do you want to just leave us with where we can follow your stuff in terms of Effortless Swimming, or get in touch with the guys to tee up a session with one of the group sessions you do, or where can we find you basically?
Our website's effortlessswimming.com, so that's got all of our clinics dates if you are in Australia near a capital city. Otherwise on YouTube or Instagram at Effortless Swimming, we put up videos every week, and there's quite a few. There's heaps of content there, so if you're looking to learn anything, we've probably done a video on it. So I appreciate you having me on the podcast, and I've been following you guys for a while, and I've known Luke for quite a while, so I appreciate you having me on. It's been good to be a guest.
No worries. Thanks again, mate. And we'll look forward to catching up soon.